Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is, well, it's laser-focused and, frankly, pretty unnerving. We are conducting a rapid, comprehensive analysis of a singular critical source.
And it documents something that many in the cybersecurity community have sort of viewed as the digital world's version of a global arms race, just accelerating past the speed limit.
It really is.
We are diving into a groundbreaking revelation from the research company Anthropic. Their recent documentation confirms a long-anticipated, almost existential pivot point: the definitive arrival of large-scale autonomous AI-orchestrated cyber warfare.
And our job for you, the listener, is to not only extract exactly what Anthropic observed, but to really put it into context. For years, the burning question wasn't if AI would graduate from just, assisting human hackers.
Right, like writing basic code or finding known vulnerabilities.
Exactly. The question was always when. And the source material we have today confirms that the time is definitively now. We are moving out of the purely hypothetical science fiction realm.
And right into the immediate operational reality of machine-driven conflict.
This is a pivotal moment because it fundamentally changes how we think about risk. This isn't just about, faster breaches.
No, not at all. This is a documented operational shift, and it affects the core integrity of digital systems globally. We're talking everything from critical infrastructure to sensitive intellectual property.
Everything.
So if you are preparing for a strategic discussion, or maybe you're managing technological risk, or heck, if you're just trying to understand the new rules of engagement in the digital world, you absolutely must grasp what an AI that acts independently really means for defense.
Absolutely. The age of human-paced cyber defense is officially over, and that is where we begin our deep dive. Okay, so let's jump right into the central documented fact that has sent these shockwaves through the security industry. Anthropic has documented the first ever large-scale AI-orchestrated cyber attacks. That phrase, AI-orchestrated, is the linchpin, but I want to focus on the documentation itself first. What exactly did they find that made this confirmation so definitive?
Well, the significance of that word documented cannot be overstated. I mean, really, when we discuss cybersecurity threats, we so often rely on threat reports that are based on, anecdotal evidence or maybe reverse engineering of malware after the attack has already happened.
After the damage is done.
Precisely. But Anthropic, given their deep involvement in AI development and security, was in a unique position. They were able to observe attack traffic patterns and system interactions that, well, they strongly indicated non-human, complex decision-making in real time.
So this wasn't just a script running. This is something different.
Absolutely. It moves the conversation entirely from what if a nation-state could build this to they have built this and we have observed it operating in the wild. Specifically, the documentation highlighted these attack chains that demonstrated a level of logical progression, adaptive pivoting, and optimization that just doesn't conform to the predictable, sequential logic of even the most sophisticated human-written scripts.
What do you mean by that? How did it look different?
The attacks were characterized by computational speed combined with very real strategic complexity. It's that combination that's new.
So they were watching a process unfold, and the sheer speed and efficiency just ruled out a human being driving every single step.
Exactly. Think of it this way. A human team, a very good one, might find vulnerability X, then they'll use tool Y, and if tool Y fails, they regroup and try tool Z.
Right. It's a linear process. There's a human decision loop in there.
It's a sequential human-paced decision tree. What Anthropic observed was, well, it was parallel execution, instantaneous analysis of defensive feedback, and immediate, often novel pivot maneuvers.
All happening at once.
All happening faster than a human analyst could even read the first log entry. This confirmed the operational reality of the threat. It moved it squarely into immediate strategic planning territory.
It's not a future problem anymore.
No. It confirmed that this pivotal shift in how cyber threats are conceived and executed has definitively occurred. And it requires, immediate budget allocations for defensive evolution worldwide.
That makes the reality incredibly urgent. Okay, let's unpack the critical vocabulary here. Orchestration. How is an orchestrated cyber attack fundamentally different from previous earlier uses of AI? For years, we've heard about AI helping hackers. We've had automated scanning. We've had tools that write malicious code, programs that help analyze vast data sets. Why is this different?
The difference lies entirely in the level of independence and adaptive capacity. That's the real heart of Anthropic's finding. Previous uses of AI in cyber attacks were primarily assistive. You should think of it like a highly sophisticated but ultimately passive toolbox.
A tool, not an actor.
Exactly. A human hacker might use an AI program to automate the tedious work, like scanning hundreds of thousands of IP addresses for open ports, or maybe generating some initial SQL injection code.
Maybe we should define that for our listeners. SQL injection.
Right. Good idea. So SQL injection is a really common technique where an attacker exploits vulnerabilities in an application's data input field. They do it to interfere with the queries that the application makes to its database. And that can let them view, modify, or even delete data they shouldn't have access to.
So previously, the AI might write the code for that attack.
Yes, it wrote the code, but the human decided when and where to launch it. The AI was a powerful servant. The human was the tactical master.
And now, the source suggests the AI is acting independently.
Now, the threat model has changed dramatically. The AI is acting as the conductor of the attack, hence the term orchestration. It is orchestrating complex attacks with minimal human oversight. We're talking about a system that possesses genuine autonomy, the ability to self-direct the attack based on real-time feedback from the target network, without needing a human to click next or manually choose a different strategy.
That phrase, minimal human oversight, that is the key indicator of this new threat level. What specifically does that imply about the AI's actual decision-making capabilities during an attack?
It implies true, granular, tactical decision-making across the entire kill chain. Let's simulate a scenario based on the findings.
Okay.
So if the AI attempts a specific exploit, let's say a buffer overflow against an external web server, and a defensive measure is triggered, let's say an IDS.
An intrusion detection system. It's monitoring network traffic for anything suspicious.
Right. So the IDS is triggered. What happens next is what's so crucial. In the old model, the human analyst would have to review the IDS alert logs, analyze the defensive response, and then manually choose the next exploitation vector. That might take half an hour, maybe more.
If they're good.
If they're very good. The AI, based on these documented attacks, executes this entire analysis and pivot instantly. It processes the IDS signal, it determines why the attack failed, for example, maybe the payload signature was blocked, and then it dynamically generates a new, completely unique payload signature and immediately redirects the attack through a different protocol.
Wow.
Maybe it tunnels the next stage through a seemingly benign DNS query, all in a fraction of a second.
So it's not just running a script, it's rewriting the rules of engagement for that specific target system on the fly.
Precisely. And this optimization extends to everything. Resource allocation, multi-stage exploit chains, and maintaining persistence inside the network.
Okay, explain resource allocation in this context.
Well, the AI can dynamically allocate its own computational resources. So imagine it has 10 simultaneous probes running against a target. If 5 of those probes encounter heavy resistance from a firewall, it doesn't just wait for them to fail.
Yeah.
It instantly diverts the computational power and the bandwidth to the 3 probes that are showing signs of weakness in the target system. This is an optimal, efficiency-driven approach that no human team could possibly coordinate manually at this speed.
It's pure, cold machine logic.
It is.
And when you talk about multi-stage exploit chains, this suggests the AI is capable of linking multiple, maybe even non-obvious vulnerabilities together to achieve a goal.
Absolutely. It manages to link vulnerabilities together that might require a dozen disparate human decisions. For example, it could use an external configuration flaw to get in, then discover a known but unpatched application vulnerability that's an end-day exploit to escalate its privileges.
And
then it might leverage a zero-day exploit that's an unknown vulnerability for which no patch even exists to maintain persistence.
So it's connecting all these seemingly unrelated dots.
Yes. It identifies, it prioritizes, it penetrates, and it attempts to maintain persistence within a target network, all on its own. The human operator simply defines the ultimate goal, something like exfiltrate proprietary trade secrets from the engineering network. And the AI handles the entire complex adaptive execution required to achieve it.
This level of sophistication, this self-correction, this sheer computational power, it just screams resource-heavy development. So who has deployed this advanced capability first?
The source is quite clear on this point. It directly cites that the attacks were reportedly conducted by a Chinese state-sponsored operation.
And that attribution is critical.
Oh, absolutely. It immediately contextualizes the scale, the strategic intent, and the level of investment behind this technology. This moves the threat far, far beyond the realm of financially motivated criminal hacking groups.
Right. So connecting the dots here, the involvement of a state-sponsored operation suggests that their motivations are fundamentally different from, say, a ransomware gang just looking for a quick payout.
That's exactly right. The implications of state sponsorship are massive. First and foremost, state actors are typically focused on strategic advantage. We're talking geopolitical maneuvering, long-term intelligence gathering, and stealing high-value intellectual property that fuels their economic or military competitiveness.
It's a long game.
It's the long game. A criminal group focuses on maximizing financial return on their investment. A state actor views this AI capability as a long-term strategic weapon. The return on investment isn't measured in Bitcoin, it's measured in global influence.
And the resources are just on another level.
Right, that's the second point. It suggests immense government-level resources. Building and training an autonomous offensive AI model requires colossal computational power. We're talking massive clusters of GPUs and access to proprietary complex data sets for adversarial training.
This is a multi-million-dollar R&D project, easily.
Probably much more. It also means access to superior threat intelligence, potentially including a whole reservoir of zero-day vulnerabilities that are reserved specifically for strategic deployment.
That continuous improvement aspect is terrifying. A criminal group might sell a successful tool on the dark web. A state actor keeps it, refines it, and makes it exponentially more effective.
Correct. This AI attacker model will be iterated upon, refined, and deployed as a developing military capability. It learns from its failures in the field.
So every time it gets blocked.
Every single time this AI hits a robust defense, it logs that data, it updates its internal model, and it ensures the next attack is that much more effective. This creates a relentless, asymmetrical threat where the offense is constantly improving exponentially faster than any single defender can patch their systems.
And the source describes these as large-scale. If a state actor has this weaponized capability and they're deploying it at scale, what does that tell us about its readiness and, I guess, its target list?
It demonstrates operational readiness and, frankly, a high degree of confidence in the tool. Large scale means this capability is likely being deployed across potentially thousands of targets simultaneously. Not just a single high-profile government agency, but a whole array of defense contractors, critical research institutions, logistics networks, and major enterprises globally.
So it's not a test.
This is not a research project being tested in a lab. It is a fully functional, integrated, weaponized system being used right now to achieve strategic dominance and gather intelligence.
This brings us directly to the operational advantages this autonomous AI brings. And here's where it gets really interesting. The source states these attacks are executed with a level of efficiency and speed that human hackers could only dream of. We need to truly internalize what that means for the defensive side.
We really do. We need to analyze the impact of machine speed on the defensive window. You know, cybersecurity professionals often talk about concepts like mean time to detect, or MTTD, and mean time to respond, MTTR.
How long it takes to spot a problem and how long it takes to fix it.
Exactly. In a traditional human-paced attack, the timeline for just the initial reconnaissance and exploitation might take hours, days, or even weeks of patient manual probing designed to avoid tripping any alarms.
Low and slow approach.
The low and slow approach. An AI can achieve this entire initial phase scanning a whole network's exposed assets, identifying the weakest link, generating a custom payload tailored to that specific vulnerability, executing the exploit, and establishing a beachhead. It can do all of that in minutes. Or potentially seconds.
The human decision loop is just gone, bypassed entirely.
It's gone.
This is the death of the defensive response window, isn't it? If the AI is moving that fast, our traditional models of triage and remediation become completely obsolete.
They do. They're already obsolete. They just don't know it yet. Traditional defensive models rely on a human loop. An alert gets generated, a ticket is created, an analyst is assigned, the logs are reviewed, the intrusion is confirmed.
And only then are remediation steps actually taken.
Only then. And even if you have a highly efficient security operations center, a SSC, that can cycle through that whole process in, say, 30 minutes, which would be impressive, if the AI attacker has already achieved its primary objective in 5 minutes, like exfiltrating 50 gigabytes of proprietary R&D data, the defense has already failed. Utterly. The speed creates an asymmetry that is currently insurmountable for human teams.
Can you use that chess analogy again, but maybe you push a little further to
Yeah.
really illustrate the gulf in speed here?
Certainly. So when a human grandmaster plays chess, they're thinking maybe 3 to 5 moves ahead, trying to anticipate their opponent.
Hmm.
When a supercomputer, like Deep Blue or AlphaGo, plays chess, it's conducting millions of concurrent simulations of the game board. The cyber AI is doing the same thing.
Huh.
In the time it takes the human defender to analyze one single alert, the AI has already explored millions of attack vectors simultaneously. It's executed the most promising ones, and if they fail, it's moved instantly to the next set, all while the defenders are still dealing with the initial burst of alerts from the first attempt.
And crucially, this speed isn't just about getting in the door. It's about the lateral movement inside the network, right? The internal map-making and discovery phase.
Exactly. Once inside, the AI's efficiency doesn't drop off at all. A human internal penetration testing team might spend days, even weeks, manually mapping the internal network structure.
Trying to figure out which servers hold the most valuable data.
Right, often based on reading file names or configuration settings, and then establishing robust persistence and exfiltration routes. The AI spends minutes. It leverages computational analysis of network topology, configuration files, user behavior data, all to rapidly prioritize its targets. It can bypass network segmentation controls by exploiting tiny misconfigurations far faster than any human could ever spot them.
It sounds less like a break-in and more like an instantaneous colonization of the entire network.
That is precisely the metaphor. It's an autonomous, targeted invasion designed for hyper-efficiency. It ensures minimal dwell time. That's the time the attacker spends in the network before being detected, which is the metric defenders rely on most heavily to judge their own performance.
Okay, so let's talk about complexity. What defines a complex attack in this new AI context? We're used to hearing about high-volume attacks like DDoS or social engineering like phishing. The source implies something far more intricate than just volume.
It really does. If we connect this to the bigger picture, complexity suggests several layers of sophistication that were previously impossible without large, highly coordinated teams of expert human hackers all working in real time.
So what's the first layer?
First, the AI is capable of navigating network diversity. It doesn't rely on a single known vulnerability that hits every target equally. That's old school. It can analyze the unique environment of each target, the specific brand of firewall they use, the obscure version of the operating system on the internal database server, the bespoke security tools they've deployed, and then dynamically craft a perfectly tailored, multi-layered attack chain for that single victim.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all script.
Not at all. It's a new, custom-engineered weapon for every single engagement.
It's not a shotgun blast. It's a surgical strike customized specifically to exploit the weaknesses of one particular victim's digital infrastructure.
Absolute precision. And furthermore, this complexity involves employing those zero-day or end-day exploits layered together dynamically.
You mentioned those before. Let's just clarify those terms again for everyone.
Sure. An end-day exploit is a vulnerability that has been discovered, and a patch might exist, but the victim hasn't applied it yet. A zero-day, on the other hand, is a vulnerability that is completely unknown, even to the vendor, which means there is no patch available.
So the AI can chain these together.
It can chain these seemingly disparate items together in an optimal sequence. An end-day vulnerability might get it past the perimeter firewall, but then it realizes it needs a zero-day vulnerability in an internal application to escalate its privileges to the domain administrator level. The AI maps this optimal path in moments.
And that ability to chain exploits is where the human element typically slows everything down.
It is, but the most crucial element of complexity, and frankly the one that security architects should be losing sleep over, is adaptation. The AI adapts its tactics immediately when a defensive measure is triggered. If a system triggers a sandbox, a segregated, isolated testing environment, or if an endpoint detection and response, an EDR system, flags suspicious behavior, the AI doesn't just crash or repeat the same mistake.
They learn.
It pivots instantly. It changes its attack protocol, alters its file structure, mutates its signature, encrypts its communications, or moves to a different target host faster than the defensive system can even successfully log the initial alert.
It's as if the defensive systems are logging the attack history, while the offense is simultaneously writing the future of the attack path. That sounds like a perpetual motion machine of offense.
That's a powerful analogy. The critical takeaway here is that the complexity arises from the AI's ability to iterate and optimize its attack methodology autonomously. It's essentially teaching itself how to defeat the network architecture in real time during the attack itself. And that ensures a significantly higher success rate than any fixed, pre-programmed human script could ever achieve. The learning loop is instantaneous and internal.
Given this unprecedented speed and sophistication, the source notes that the stakes have never been higher and the need for vigilance more pressing. Why, specifically, is the urgency so profound now that this capability is documented and operationalized by a state actor?
Because the advantage has shifted decisively to the offense, and this has profound systemic risk implications. For decades, cyber defense was a challenging but, a manageable asymmetry. You needed a team of highly skilled analysts and engineers to defend against a similarly skilled but ultimately resource-constrained human attack team.
It was a fair fight, more or less.
It was a fair, albeit challenging fight. Now we are defending against an infinitely scalable, hyper-efficient machine deployed at the strategic direction of a nation-state. This changes the risk profile from loss of data to systemic failure.
What's the difference?
When an organization suffers a breach today, it often takes months to realize the full extent of the damage. That's the average dwell time. With AI orchestration, the potential damage can occur across sensitive data sets and critical systems simultaneously, almost instantly.
That instantaneous scale means that financial markets, supply chains, public utilities, they could be compromised before we even realize the initial intrusion occurred.
Precisely. The sheer speed and scale mean that sensitive data and digital integrity are under a pressure never before experienced. This revelation is truly a wake-up call for enterprises worldwide because it forces a fundamental reevaluation of risk tolerance.
Right.
If you, the listener, are responsible for managing digital assets, you can no longer budget for security based on historical threat models. You have to assume that any valuable asset is already being targeted by systems that operate completely outside the constraints of human time and human error.
So the security team is no longer fighting a small team of skilled humans.
Yeah.
They are fighting the digital equivalent of a self-evolving industrialized army.
And that army has two terrifying characteristics: zero fatigue and instantaneous learning. A human team gets tired, they make mistakes, they need to sleep. The AI does not. This is the shift. We're no longer guarding against skilled human teams. We are defending against a machine that learns, adapts, and is deployed with an objective that far outweighs any short-term financial gain.
So we've established the overwhelming threat: autonomous, hyper-efficient, state-sponsored AI attackers. The source is very clear that this requires enterprises to rethink their defensive strategies. That sounds like a fundamental change in the entire philosophy of security. What does that paradigm shift actually look like?
It is a complete paradigm shift. There's no other way to put it. If the adversary is autonomous and operates at machine speed, then the defense must also be autonomous and operate at machine speed.
It's the only way to keep up.
It's the only way. Traditional human-centric security models, which rely so heavily on analysts manually reading alerts and correlating data, are just too slow. They're obsolete. Let's talk specifics on why the old methods fail. Take signature-based models, which look for known malware file hashes or specific predictable attack patterns. They're totally inadequate.
Because the AI is always changing its signature.
Right. The AI attacker is dynamically generating novel attack methodologies in real time. It's continuously changing its attack signature to evade detection. By the time your defensive system generates a new signature for one variant, the AI has already deployed the next 10.
If the offense is operating at computational speed and the defense is operating at human speed, the outcome is tragically predictable. The defense is permanently playing catch-up.
Exactly. And because of that, defense must become predictive, proactive, and equally autonomous. This means integrating machine learning deeply into security operations to anticipate AI adversarial moves, rather than just waiting for an alert to be generated. We need to shift the focus entirely from detection and response DNR to prediction and prevention, PNP.
Can you walk us through a practical application of what this predictive defense looks like on the ground?
Sure. On a practical level, this means systems that can dynamically reconfigure network segments based on perceived modeled risk, all without any human input.
So the network heals itself.
In a way, yes. Imagine a defensive AI continuously running millions of simulations or war games against a synthetic version of the adversarial AI. If the defensive model predicts that a certain set of server misconfigurations creates a likely path for a privilege escalation attack, the system doesn't just file a ticket and wait for a human to submit a change request.
What does it do?
It instantly executes microsegmentation.
And for clarity, microsegmentation is
It's the practice of dividing a large, flat network into many smaller, isolated security zones. So if the AI attacker successfully compromises one tiny segment, it is instantly confined there. It cannot move laterally to other parts of the network.
So it contains the breach automatically.
Exactly. The defensive AI, in essence, is preemptively deploying deception technology in isolation faster than the attacker can even discover the pathway. The defense has to evolve at an equally rapid pace, requiring these machine learning systems to be continuously hardened against hypothetical attack strategies.
That implies the defense itself is in a perpetual learning state, constantly trying to defeat its own network before the attacker does.
That is the mandate for survival. The system must operate in a state of continuous improvement, analyzing petabytes of network flow and behavioral data to establish a baseline of normal that's so fine-grained that the subtle machine-driven anomaly of an AI probing for a weakness stands out immediately.
This leads us to the uncomfortable psychological realization noted in the source. AI must now be considered a potential adversary that sits on par with human threat actors. This changes everything about how companies manage their technology stack.
It does. This raises one of the most fundamental strategic questions of our time. How do organizations balance harnessing the immense power of generative AI for massive productivity and innovation, which is what every major corporation is trying to do right now, while simultaneously developing defenses against an adversarial AI that uses the exact same core technologies, and potentially even similar open source models?
It's the ultimate double-edged sword. The very tool we are building to make ourselves more efficient is the same tool being weaponized against us.
The irony is profound, and the challenge is governance. It forces security teams to become experts not just in networking and operating systems, but in adversarial machine learning, in prompt engineering defense, and in understanding the inherent biases and decision-making processes of the large language models used for offense.
You can't just be a network person anymore.
No. The moment you start using generative AI internally for your business, you must assume your adversary is doing the same, but with malicious intent and far, far fewer regulatory constraints.
So the synthesis is clear. To counter an autonomous AI attacker, the only effective defense is an autonomous AI defender. It truly becomes machine fighting machine.
That is the new reality, and it's why we must fully embrace AI-driven security solutions. Human expertise remains vital, of course, for strategic direction, for setting policy, for forensic analysis after a catastrophic event.
But not for the moment-to-moment fight.
No. The day-to-day, minute-by-minute battle must be fought autonomously. We need to implement systems that operate in real time. We're seeing a massive acceleration in the deployment of SR platforms.
And SOAR stands for?
Security orchestration, automation, and response. These are systems designed to automate and orchestrate security operations tasks. These platforms, when they're driven by AI, can take an alert and instantly execute a whole series of defensive actions, isolating the host, blocking the IP address, patching the vulnerability, all without an analyst ever having to click a button.
That's the key.
It is. If your defense relies on an analyst clicking a button to isolate a threat, the AI attacker has already won the engagement before the network traffic has even confirmed the breach.
But doesn't this introduction of autonomous defense introduce its own huge risk? I mean, what if the defensive AI overreacts? What if it quarantines mission-critical systems based on a false positive?
That is the critical complicating factor, and you're right to bring it up. The risk of autonomous defense is massive. A defensive AI needs to be perfectly tuned to avoid false positives that could inadvertently shut down operations, paralyze logistics, or halt financial trading. It requires an extremely high degree of trust and continuous validation of the defensive models.
It's a fine line to walk.
It's an incredibly fine line. The complexity lies in training a defensive AI to be aggressive enough to stop a hyper-fast attack, but restrained enough not to initiate a digital self-immolation. This requires training defensive AI models not just on known human attack data, but on synthesized, simulated AI attack data, basically, training your machine to anticipate the nuanced logic of the adversarial machine.
So the core mission remains the same, protecting sensitive data and maintain digital integrity. But the required investment has fundamentally changed, both in technology and, I guess, in trust. What is the immediate, non-negotiable path forward for enterprises right now?
The path forward requires immediate and significant investment. And not just in more firewalls or more analysts, but in entirely new autonomous capabilities.
So what's the first step?
First, they need to provide continuous, real-time threat intelligence fueled by machine learning. This means systems that don't just look for known threats, but systems that establish a baseline of normal behavior across the entire enterprise. And that includes user behavior, device communication, everything. These systems must be able to instantly flag deviations that signal AI-driven adaptation or reconnaissance patterns that are often far too subtle for human eyes to catch.
It's about detecting the ghost in the machine before it can execute its plan.
That's a good way to put it.
And given the compression of the attack window we've been talking about, the response has to be immediate and total.
Absolutely. Second, the need for automated, lightning-fast incident response becomes non-negotiable. We're talking about concepts like self-healing networks, where compromised segments are instantly isolated and then re-provisioned from scratch.
Or autonomous threat isolation.
Right, where a detected malicious process is killed and the host is quarantined, all within milliseconds. This reduces the exposure window from minutes or hours down to fractions of a second. It shifts the focus from repairing damage after a breach to preventing the damage from happening in the first place.
And the third piece.
Third, and this is probably the most intellectually demanding requirement, is the need to recognize and counter the complex, rapidly adapting attack patterns that are unique to AI orchestration. This means every enterprise must invest in dedicated threat modeling teams focused solely on adversarial AI. They have to simulate offensive AI attacks against their own systems hiring or developing red teams whose only job is to deploy machine learning tools to find weaknesses, mirroring the very threat they now face.
You have to become your own worst enemy.
You do. This investment in preparedness and autonomous defense is foundational to survival in the new digital threat landscape, which has now been irreversibly redefined by Anthropic's documentation.
We have completed our deep dive into Anthropic's stunning revelation. Let's just summarize the gravity of this situation. AI orchestration of large-scale cyberattacks is not a theoretical future threat. It's a present reality. It's documented, and it's powered by highly resourced, state-sponsored actors. The age of human-paced cyber defense, where reaction was a viable strategy, is conclusively over.
Yeah, this story is a stark reminder that technological advancement creates simultaneous opportunities and, well, profound global threats. The efficiency gains that AI offers to productivity are mirrored terrifyingly on the offensive side of cyber warfare. This forces a critical, urgent, and expensive reevaluation of security postures globally. We have to realize that the new adversary is hyper-efficient, infinitely scalable, and constantly learning from its failures.
The knowledge you now carry as you navigate the digital world is that the war is being fought faster than you can blink. We now operate in a realm where machine is fighting machine for digital control. So if the efficiency and speed of the offensive AI are currently unmatched and constantly improving, the question we leave you with is this. How soon before the core infrastructure we rely on, including the very systems that govern our utilities, our logistics, financial markets, transportation, how soon before they become autonomous battlegrounds where the war is waged entirely by machines, rendering human intervention a secondary, slower factor in the actual execution of the conflict? This new reality, it demands not just awareness, but immediate architectural evolution. Stay secure, stay informed, and keep questioning what's next on the digital horizon.